He said it while the applause was still echoing. The lights had barely faded from the stage when his voice sliced through the air, flat, deliberate, and loud enough for everyone at our table to hear. I've decided to start a new life without you. At first, I thought he was joking. He had that voice, the one he used when he wanted to sound brave or righteous. But his eyes were steady, almost rehearsed. My daughter was still smiling at the podium, the gold tassel from her cap glinting under the lights. She didn't hear him, not yet. Everyone else did. The sound around us fractured. Laughter turned to silence, forks stopped midway, glasses froze in midair. Across the round table, his girlfriend, the one who had once been our family friend, sat among our guests, her lipstick trembling at the edges of a guilty smile. It was all perfectly arranged. His grand declaration, my public humiliation, the night meant to belong to my daughter. He had chosen his moment carefully. He always did. I felt nothing. At least not yet. Just a long, cold stretch of stillness, as if time had stepped aside to make room for the ruin. When I finally spoke, my voice surprised me, smooth, calm, almost kind. Congratulations on your honesty. He blinked. He wasn't expecting composure. He wanted spectacle, a scene, a collapse, something to confirm that he'd broken me. But I smiled instead. And I handed him an envelope. For you, I said. He frowned, took it, slipped his thumb under the flap. And when he looked inside, his face changed, color drained, lips parted, and something raw and animal escaped his throat. He started screaming. And that was the first sound that made me feel alive again.
2 months earlier, I found her earring. Not in the bed, he wasn't that careless, but under the passenger seat of his car. A small pearl drop earring, familiar in its simplicity. I'd seen it before on her. Lydia, his colleague's wife. The one who laughed too loud at his jokes, who offered me wine refills I didn't ask for. The same Lydia who sent group photos from office events, cropping herself close to him, always just at the edge of propriety. I remember holding that earring in my palm, feeling its warmth from the sun through the windshield. It was light, insignificant, and yet it weighed something monumental. I didn't cry. I didn't confront. I simply paused. He'd been coming home late for weeks. Conference calls, client dinners, traffic. I believed none of it, but I let him speak. He had perfected his lies long before he needed them. Marriage, I realized, isn't destroyed by one betrayal. It erodes in whispers, in excuses, in half-closed doors and late-night silences. That night, I placed the earring in a small jewelry box on my dresser, not as evidence, as a reminder, proof that what I felt was real, that the unease, the distance, the quiet rot under our home's polished surface wasn't my imagination. The next day, I began to watch. Not obsessively, strategically. I noted his calls, his movements, the rhythm of his lies. I learned the pattern of his guilt, the way he avoided my eyes when he wanted me to believe him, the sudden affection when he feared exposure. He didn't suspect a thing. Men like him never do. They confuse quiet with blindness. But I was never blind. I was patient.
It began with his phone. He used to guard it like a weapon. Screen down, notifications off, the passcode changed weekly. But he wasn't cautious enough to realize his smartwatch mirrored everything. Every message, every photo, every whisper of digital deceit that he thought lived only in his pocket. So when his wrist buzzed one evening while he was in the shower, I didn't move toward it. I simply watched. The preview was enough. Can't wait to see you again. You make me forget she even exists. Lydia. She even exists. That was me. She. I took a deep breath, steady and cold. Then I photographed the message with my phone. Not to confront him yet, not to scream, to document. Truth, once recorded, becomes its own weapon. Over the next week, I gathered more. Hotel receipts, hidden calls, shared passwords he'd forgotten he'd given me years ago. I read his messages, his plans, his apologies, his promises to her. Each word peeled away another layer of the man I thought I knew. And every night, I smiled at him the same way. Cooked dinner, asked about work, kissed him goodnight. He thought he was winning. He didn't realize he was walking into the story I was writing. Then came the final piece, a bank transfer. $15,000 to an account in her name. I traced it. He'd funded her new apartment, a place they would spend weekends together once he sorted things out. Sorted things out. That meant me. By the time I requested a copy of his email backups from our shared cloud account, the entire web of deceit unfolded in front of me like a blueprint. He wasn't just leaving, he was erasing, slowly transferring money, redirecting mail, consulting a divorce attorney without a word. He wanted to discard me cleanly, as if 20 years, a daughter, and a life together were nothing more than clutter. So I made a plan, a quiet, methodical one. Because if he wanted to start a new life, I'd make sure it began with the truth. The truth arrived in a brown envelope. Inside, notarized financial statements, printed emails, and copies of messages he thought he'd deleted, evidence of affairs, hidden accounts, fraudulent signatures, and the name Lydia Brooks repeated like a haunting refrain. I spent the night reading it all under a single lamp. No tears, just silence. Each line etched deeper into my understanding of who he had become, or perhaps who he'd always been. By dawn, I knew everything. And I also knew I would never give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. When he came down for breakfast that morning, I was already dressed, calm, collected. He kissed my cheek as if nothing had changed.
"You're quiet," he said. I looked at him, really looked at him. His face was older than I remembered. His smile strained, eyes bloodshot from pretending. I felt nothing but the faintest trace of pity, the kind you feel for something that's already dying. "Just tired," I said. "You should eat." He left for work. I watched from the window as he backed out of the driveway, phone already at his ear. No doubt calling her. That day, I called my lawyer. 2 days later, I met with a forensic accountant. By the end of the week, I had everything I needed. Copies of his hidden accounts, the fraudulent transfers, the proof of marital infidelity. In my state, that meant full control of shared assets once filed correctly. I didn't want his money. I wanted control of the narrative. When I finally decided how to end it, it wasn't rage that guided me. It was precision. He had used our daughter's graduation as the perfect stage for his moral triumph, the noble husband finally seeking happiness. The audience would pity him. They would think I was the cold, detached wife who drove him away. So I decided that would be the stage for his unraveling instead. The hall was glittering that night. Hundreds of people, the air warm with applause and champagne. My daughter looked radiant, full of the kind of hope that once belonged to me. He stood beside me, playing the proud father, his arm brushing mine in rehearsed affection. He had no idea that I knew everything, that the lawyer had already filed the papers under my name, that the house, the accounts, the cars, all of it were already transferred legally, irrevocably, to me. He believed he was the one walking away with power. When the ceremony ended and we gathered at our table, he cleared his throat. There was that tone again, righteous, trembling with self-importance. "I've decided to start a new life without you," he said. Silence rippled through the room. People stared. Even the music dimmed. I turned to him slowly. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind until it became muscle memory. "Congratulations," I said softly, smiling, "on your honesty." He blinked, confused by the calm. Then I reached into my clutch and handed him the envelope. The same brown one that had sat on my desk for a week, waiting. He took it, smirking at first. Then he opened it. Inside were copies of his transfer receipts, messages, and one final sheet, a notice of legal asset redistribution and divorce filing effective that morning. Filed under marital fraud. He read it once, then again. His hand trembled, and then he saw the last page. A letter from his employer's HR department, the anonymous packet I had mailed days earlier. His affair with a colleague's wife was now official company record. Lydia's husband, the colleague, had received a copy too. The color drained from his face. "You," he whispered, unable to finish. I said nothing. I just looked at him, the way a surgeon looks at a finished incision. Clean. Clinical. Across the room, Lydia sat frozen, watching. Her smile wilted, her glass slipping from her fingers and shattering quietly against the floor. My husband's breathing grew shallow. He stood up suddenly, chair scraping violently against the floor. You can't," he started, voice cracking. But I was already rising. "Enjoy your new life," I said, picking up my clutch. The room was still. Even my daughter, now standing by the stage, stared in confusion, her world tilting, but not yet breaking. I met her eyes, calm, steady, reassuring. "I'll explain later," I mouthed. And then I walked out. Behind me, I heard the first scream, raw, guttural, disbelieving. It wasn't just anger. It was the sound of a man realizing the story had ended without him. I didn't look back that night, not once. The moon was high, the parking lot empty. My heels clicked against the pavement, steady, deliberate, each step slicing the silence in two. I felt lighter, though not in the way people mean when they talk about freedom. This wasn't freedom. This was absence, a hollow piece carved out by truth. When I reached the car, I sat inside for a long moment, hands on the wheel, eyes on the faint reflection of my face in the window. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She wasn't the same woman who spent years making excuses for him.
who laughed politely at his lies, who cleaned up after his emotional messes. She was someone else now, colder, sharper, still. At home, the house was quiet. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the window. The graduation photo my daughter had sent pinged on my phone, her smile radiant, untouched by the chaos that had unfolded minutes earlier. I typed back a single message. I'm proud of you. Always. Then I deleted every trace of him from my phone. His number, his photos, his name. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the faint echo of something ending. I thought of his face as he opened the envelope, that flicker of disbelief before the scream. The moment he realized that the woman he thought too soft, too passive, had rewritten the ending he had planned for her. He had wanted to humiliate me in public. He succeeded only in exposing himself. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't shout, it waits. And when it finally speaks, it destroys quietly. I took another sip of wine. The glass trembled faintly in my hand, not from nerves, but from the residue of adrenaline finally leaving my body. Somewhere out there, he was trying to pick up the pieces, his career, his reputation, his illusion of control. But none of that was my concern anymore. He had announced his freedom. I had granted it, with interest. When the night deepened and the city went still, I closed the curtains and turned off the light. The darkness felt cleaner than I remembered. Quieter. People think revenge is about destruction. It isn't. It's about restoration, the quiet rebalancing of a truth that was taken from you. As I lay in bed, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not even satisfied. Just done. The kind of done that leaves nothing behind. Tomorrow, I'd call the lawyer, finalize the paperwork, and move on with the grace he mistook for weakness. But tonight, I let the silence settle over me. Heavy, pure, and complete. I closed my eyes. And the last thought that crossed my mind before sleep took me was simple, almost tender. He started a new life without me. I started mine long before he knew it.